Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a time in life when we must decide what we stand for and what we will no longer allow in our personal space. Too often, people, sometimes even those closest to us, cross lines we should never permit. And yet, out of guilt, fear, or a sense of obligation, we stay silent. But silence is permission, and permission is power handed over. Today, I want to talk about 5 behaviors you should never tolerate from anyone, not even from family. Because love, loyalty, and blood relations do not give anyone the right to mistreat you. Disrespect is one of the most damaging behaviors that can silently erode the foundation of any relationship. It often shows up in subtle ways. An eye roll during a conversation, a sarcastic remark, or the dismissal of something you deeply care about. Many people brush it off, telling themselves it's just their personality or they didn't really mean it. But the truth is that disrespect, no matter how small, sets the tone for how others will treat you. If you accept it once, you unconsciously send the message that your feelings, your voice, and your presence can be disregarded. And when that pattern continues over time, it begins to shrink your sense of self-worth. At its core, disrespect communicates one powerful message: you don't matter. When someone interrupts you while you're speaking, talks over you, or refuses to listen when you're expressing your thoughts, they are not just being rude. They are declaring that your perspective is unimportant. Over time, enduring this behavior can make you second guess yourself, hesitate to share your ideas, or even doubt your intelligence. And if this comes from family members, it can feel especially painful because these are the people who should value and uplift you the most. Allowing disrespect, even in small doses, teaches others that you will tolerate being diminished, and that is something you should never allow. Disrespect can also take the form of mocking or minimizing your emotions. For example, if you share that you are stressed or hurt, and the response you receive is laughter, sarcasm, or a cold, you're overreacting, you are experiencing emotional invalidation. This kind of response sends a dangerous signal that your feelings are not real, not justified, or not worthy of attention. When repeated, this creates an environment where you begin to silence yourself, hiding your emotions because you fear ridicule or dismissal. The long-term effect is emotional numbness, a sense of isolation even in the company of others, and a lack of trust in your own emotional experiences. Another layer of disrespect comes through comparison. Perhaps a sibling is constantly praised in front of you while your achievements are ignored, or maybe a parent belittles your life choices by comparing them to someone else's, as if you are always falling short. Comparisons are rarely about encouragement. They are a form of devaluation. They imply that who you are is not enough, and that you must become someone else to earn approval. This behavior is deeply toxic because it doesn't just wound your confidence. It plants seeds of resentment, competition, and bitterness within families that can last for years. It's also important to recognize that disrespect is not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it hides in silence. A family member who ignores your boundaries, gives you the silent treatment as punishment, or refuses to acknowledge your presence is still communicating disrespect. Silence can cut deeper than words because it creates uncertainty. You're left wondering what you did wrong, questioning your worth, and often carrying guilt for someone else's inability to communicate with maturity. This form of passive disrespect is just as harmful as open criticism, and it must not be excused simply because it avoids conflict. Ultimately, tolerating disrespect, whether loud, quiet, subtle, or blatant, creates a cycle where you become accustomed to being undervalued. And the more you accept it, the harder it becomes to stand up against it. Respect is not optional. It is the minimum requirement for any healthy relationship. You deserve to be spoken to with kindness, listened to with attentiveness, and treated as though your presence matters. Family or not, anyone who consistently disrespects you is showing you that they do not honor your worth. And when someone refuses to honor your worth, the most powerful thing you can do is honor it yourself by refusing to tolerate their behavior. Manipulation is one of the most insidious behaviors because it is not always easy to identify. Unlike outright disrespect, manipulation often hides beneath layers of sweetness, guilt, or concern. On the surface, it may look like love, care, or even protection, but at its core, manipulation is about one thing: control. When someone tries to make you feel guilty for saying no, when they twist your words to suit their narrative, or when they pressure you to make decisions that benefit them while costing you your peace, that is manipulation. It's subtle, it's dangerous, and when it comes from family, it can be even harder to confront because it disguises itself as loyalty or duty. One of the most common tools manipulators use is guilt. They may say things like, "After all I've done for you, this is how you treat me," or "If you loved me, you would do this for me." This kind of emotional blackmail makes you feel as though your worth or loyalty is always being tested, and the only way to prove yourself is by sacrificing your own needs. Over time, this erodes your ability to make choices freely. You begin living not for yourself, but for the approval of others. And that is exactly what manipulators want: control over your decisions by making you fear the consequences of disappointing them. Another form of manipulation is gaslighting, which is when someone makes you doubt your own reality, memory, or feelings. For instance, if you confront a family member about hurtful words they said, and their response is, "That never happened," or "You're imagining things," they are intentionally distorting the truth. Gaslighting is powerful because it not only invalidates your feelings, but also makes you question your sanity. The more you are subjected to it, the more you begin to second guess your own instincts. And when you no longer trust yourself, you become dependent on the manipulator's version of reality, which is exactly what keeps you under their control. Manipulation can also appear in the form of constant pressure. Some family members push you toward decisions you're not ready for or paths you don't want to take. Whether it's about your career, your relationships, or your personal life, they use phrases like, "Why know what's best for you?" or "You'll regret it if you don't listen to us." While advice and guidance can be loving, manipulation takes away your right to choose. It dismisses your individuality and treats you as though your life belongs to someone else. The danger of this behavior is that it forces you into living a life that does not feel like your own, leaving you resentful, unfulfilled, and disconnected from your true self. Some manipulators use kindness as their weapon. They shower you with love, compliments, or favors when they want something from you, only to withdraw it when you don't comply. This conditional affection creates a cycle of anxiety. You feel safe only when you are giving in to their wishes. It's like walking on eggshells, never knowing when the warmth will turn into coldness. And because you crave consistency, you end up giving more and more, hoping to keep the peace. This is not love. It is control disguised as love. True love does not demand obedience, nor does it make you feel unsafe when you say no. At its root, manipulation strips you of autonomy. It denies you the right to own your choices, your emotions, and your voice. That is why it should never be tolerated, not even from family. The hardest part is that manipulators often frame themselves as victims, making you feel cruel or ungrateful for resisting them. But the truth is this: protecting your independence is not an act of betrayal. It is an act of survival. You deserve relationships built on respect, honesty, and freedom, not ones where love is used as a leash to control you. By refusing to tolerate manipulation, you reclaim your power, your clarity, and the freedom to live life on your own terms. Criticism is often disguised as honesty or concern, but when it becomes constant, it turns into a weapon that slowly breaks a person down. Occasional feedback can be constructive, but persistent fault-finding is corrosive. When someone continually highlights your shortcomings, mocks your efforts, or dismisses your successes, it sends the message that nothing you do will ever be good enough. And when that voice comes from family, it cuts even deeper, because the people who should be your biggest cheerleaders become your harshest judges. This type of environment does not nurture growth. It suffocates it. The damage of constant criticism lies in repetition. A single negative remark may sting, but hearing the same belittling messages again and again plants seeds of doubt that grow into self-criticism. If a parent constantly tells their child, "You're lazy," eventually that child may begin to believe it, even if it isn't true. If a sibling repeatedly mocks your choices, you may start to second-guess your decisions, even when they're right for you. Words shape beliefs, and when criticism is the language you grow up with, you risk carrying those negative beliefs about yourself into adulthood. What begins as someone else's voice eventually becomes your own inner critic. Constant criticism is especially harmful because it often pretends to be helpful. Family members might say, "I'm just trying to make you better," or "I'm saying this because I care." But cruelty wrapped in concern is still cruelty. Real care uplifts, supports, and encourages growth without crushing self-esteem. When criticism is constant, it isn't about helping you improve. It's about exerting control, keeping you in a place of insecurity so that you remain dependent on the approval of others. This cycle keeps you from trusting your own judgment and conditions you to seek validation from those who tear you down. Another dangerous effect of constant criticism is how it overshadows appreciation. Imagine working hard on something only to have your effort overlooked because a family member points out the one mistake you made. Over time, this diminishes your motivation. Why try if the result will always be rejection? Why take risks if failure will be met with ridicule instead of support? In this way, constant criticism kills creativity, silences expression, and prevents people from becoming their fullest selves. And perhaps the most painful part is realizing that those you wanted to impress the most never truly saw your worth. It's also important to understand that constant criticism doesn't just hurt individuals, it damages relationships. When one person is always on the receiving end of negativity, resentment begins to build. Communication breaks down because conversations stop feeling safe. Instead of being able to share openly, you filter yourself, bracing for judgment with every word. Over time, this creates emotional distance. Love cannot flourish in an environment where one voice is always cutting and one heart is always shrinking. Families that thrive are built on encouragement and respect, not on tearing one another apart under the guise of tough love. The truth is that criticism says more about the critic than it does about you. People who constantly criticize often project their own insecurities, disappointments, or frustrations onto others. Recognizing this doesn't make their behavior acceptable, but it does help you understand that their words are not a reflection of your value. No matter who it comes from, constant criticism should not be tolerated. You deserve relationships that honor your efforts, acknowledge your growth, and speak life into your journey, not ones that suffocate you with negativity. By refusing to accept constant criticism, you reclaim your right to be seen as a whole person, imperfect, yes, but worthy of love, respect, and encouragement. Boundaries are the invisible lines that protect our mental, emotional, and physical well-being. They are not walls meant to keep people out, but guidelines that teach others how to treat us. Unfortunately, some people, especially family members, believe that being related gives them unlimited access to your time, energy, and decisions. They may invade your privacy, dismiss your need for personal space, or expect you to sacrifice your comfort to meet their demands. When this behavior goes unchecked, it becomes a violation of your dignity. And when it comes from those closest to you, it can feel confusing because it is often disguised as love, care, or tradition. The danger of ignoring boundaries is that it creates resentment. You may say yes to avoid conflict, but deep down you begin to feel used, unappreciated, or taken for granted. Over time, this resentment poisons relationships. You may find yourself avoiding family gatherings, feeling drained after every interaction, or even questioning your self-worth because your needs never seem to matter. What's worse is that those who violate your boundaries often don't stop until you firmly draw the line. Boundaries, then, are not about shutting people out. They are about teaching people how to stay in your life without harming you. Family boundary violations can show up in many ways. A parent may walk into your room without knocking. A sibling may demand your help without respecting your time, or relatives may expect you to share personal details you're not comfortable disclosing. They may frame it as harmless. We're family, we don't keep secrets. But in reality, it's a refusal to respect your autonomy. Boundaries protect individuality, and when they are dismissed, the message is clear: your life is not entirely yours. This mindset, if tolerated, leads to unhealthy dynamics where you are constantly sacrificing yourself just to keep peace in the family. Another form of boundary violation comes through emotional intrusion. Family members may insist on controlling your choices, whom you date, what career you pursue, or how you live your life. They justify this with tradition, culture, or good intentions, but the result is the same: your independence is compromised. While guidance is natural and sometimes valuable, interference is not. Adults deserve the right to live their lives according to their values, not out of fear of disappointing others. When families refuse to recognize that line, they suffocate individuality and replace love with control. The absence of boundaries also shows up in how families treat your time and energy. You may be expected to drop everything to cater to their needs, no matter how overwhelming it feels. If you say no, you might be accused of being selfish or ungrateful. But here is the truth: protecting your energy is not selfish. It is essential. Saying no does not mean you don't care. It means you care enough about yourself to avoid burnout, and you care enough about the relationship to ensure it isn't built on resentment. Healthy families understand that love grows stronger when respect for personal limits is present. Ultimately, boundaries are not about keeping people at a distance. They are about keeping relationships healthy. A lack of boundaries leads to emotional exhaustion, resentment, and even estrangement. But when you enforce boundaries, you create clarity, you teach others how to treat you, and you protect the parts of yourself that need safety. No one, family or not, has the right to invade your life without consent. Boundaries are not betrayal, they are an act of love. Love for yourself and love for the relationship you are trying to preserve. By refusing to tolerate boundary violations, you reclaim ownership of your life, your choices, and your peace. Abuse, whether emotional or physical, is the clearest line that must never be crossed in any relationship. And yet, because it often comes from those closest to us, many people excuse it, minimize it, or learn to endure it. Abuse does not always begin with violence. It often starts with words. A sharp insult, a raised voice, a controlling demand, these can escalate over time into patterns of belittlement, humiliation, or even physical harm. What makes abuse so dangerous is that it strips you of your sense of safety. When the people who are supposed to love you the most become the ones who harm you, the betrayal cuts to the core of your being. Emotional abuse is particularly insidious because it doesn't leave visible scars, but its impact is profound. It might look like constant belittling, gaslighting, threats, or manipulation designed to make you feel worthless or dependent. A family member may call you names, mock your choices, or threaten to withdraw love unless you comply with their wishes. Over time, these experiences erode your self-esteem and create a sense of powerlessness. Victims of emotional abuse often internalize the cruelty, believing that they are the problem. But the truth is, no one deserves to be diminished or controlled in the name of family love or loyalty. Physical abuse, on the other hand, shatters both body and spirit. No excuse, stress, anger, culture, or tradition can ever justify laying hands on another human being in violence. Yet, for many, family ties make it difficult to break away. They may hear phrases like, "You provoked me," or "It wasn't that bad," convincing them to normalize behavior that is, in reality, deeply harmful. Every act of physical violence communicates domination, not love. It creates an environment of fear where you learn to shrink, to avoid conflict, and to walk on eggshells just to stay safe. But living in fear is not living, it is surviving, and you were meant for more than survival. One of the hardest truths to accept is that abuse thrives in silence. Many victims stay quiet because they fear judgment, shame, or the possibility of tearing the family apart. In some cultures, speaking against a parent or spouse is seen as dishonor, but silence protects the abuser, not the abused. It allows the cycle to continue, often growing worse with time. Recognizing abuse for what it is and refusing to tolerate it is not an act of betrayal. It is an act of self-preservation. Family bonds cannot excuse cruelty. True love does not harm, it heals, protects, and nurtures. Abuse also has ripple effects that extend far beyond the immediate relationship. Children who grow up witnessing or experiencing abuse often carry the trauma into adulthood, either repeating the cycle or struggling to form healthy connections. Emotional wounds left untreated can manifest as anxiety, depression, or deep mistrust of others. In this way, tolerating abuse not only damages you, but can also impact future generations. Breaking free from abusive dynamics is not just about saving yourself, it's about rewriting the story for those who come after you. The most important truth to remember is this: you have the right to be safe. That is non-negotiable. You deserve relationships where love feels secure, not frightening, where words encourage, not destroy, where touch comforts, not harms. Emotional or physical abuse has no place in any relationship, regardless of blood ties, tradition, or history. Refusing to tolerate it is not weakness. It is the ultimate strength. Protecting yourself is not selfish. It is the bravest act of self-respect you can take. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for future generations is to walk away from those who abuse you, no matter who they are. One of the most painful forms of mistreatment is when love itself is used as a weapon. Withholding affection, attention, or support as a form of punishment creates deep emotional wounds that linger for years. Unlike open conflict, which is visible and often temporary, conditional love is subtle. It creates insecurity at the core of who you are. When someone you love withholds kindness until you behave the way they want, they are teaching you that love must be earned rather than freely given. And when this comes from family, it cuts especially deep because family love should be the safest and most unconditional of all. The tactic of withholding love works because it taps into our most basic human need, the need to belong. When a parent refuses to speak to a child for days, when a sibling turns cold and distant after a disagreement, or when a partner ignores your emotional needs to teach you a lesson, the message is clear. You will only be accepted when you meet their expectations. This creates a relationship dynamic where love feels fragile, like it could vanish the moment you make a mistake. Instead of feeling safe to be your authentic self, you begin walking on eggshells, carefully molding yourself into what others want you to be just to keep their affection. Over time, conditional love destroys self-worth. If you are constantly made to feel that affection depends on compliance, you may start believing that you are unworthy of love simply for being yourself. You internalize the idea that mistakes make you undeserving, that your voice or independence will cost you closeness, and that approval is always something you must chase. This cycle is particularly dangerous because it blurs the line between love and control. True love nurtures freedom, but conditional love chains it, forcing you to sacrifice authenticity for acceptance. What makes this behavior so toxic is that it masquerades as discipline or tough love. Family members may say, "We'll only treat you this way because we want the best for you," or "You'll thank us later." But withholding love is not guidance. It is punishment. It does not teach responsibility or growth. It teaches fear and compliance. It does not strengthen relationships. It weakens them by creating distance, mistrust, and silent resentment. At its core, it communicates that your value is conditional and that no matter what you give, it will never be enough unless you surrender your individuality. The effects of conditional love often last far beyond the relationship itself. Adults who grew up in environments where affection was withheld frequently struggle with intimacy, fearing abandonment whenever they express their true selves. They may become people pleasers, constantly seeking validation, or they may withdraw emotionally, convinced that closeness always comes at a cost. The scars of conditional love are invisible but profound. They shape how you view yourself and how you navigate every future relationship. This is why refusing to tolerate it is not only about protecting yourself in the present, but about healing generations of wounds. The truth is simple. Real love is not conditional. It does not vanish because of disagreements. It does not disappear because you set boundaries or make mistakes. Love that is genuine provides security, not fear. It holds space for imperfection, for difference, and for growth. Withholding affection to punish or control is not love, it is manipulation. And no matter who it comes from, even family, you must never accept it as normal. Choosing to reject conditional love is not a rejection of family. It is a rejection of unhealthy dynamics that strip love of its true power. You deserve relationships where support is steady, affection is consistent, and love is not earned through obedience, but freely because of who you are. We often underestimate the weight of what we allow in our lives. Every time we excuse disrespect, minimize manipulation, absorb constant criticism, ignore boundary violations, endure abuse, or accept love that comes with conditions, we teach others that our worth can be compromised. And when those behaviors come from family, the temptation is even greater to stay silent, to tell ourselves, that's just how they are, or it's my duty to tolerate it. But the truth is this blood history and shared last names do not grant anyone the right to mistreat you. Family should be a source of safety, love, and strength. But when family members engage in behaviors that diminish your spirit, you must remember that your first responsibility is to yourself. Too often, people confuse loyalty with submission. They confuse love with endurance. But loyalty does not mean sacrificing your dignity, and love does not mean tolerating harm. Healthy relationships, whether with family, friends, or partners, are built on mutual respect, trust, and compassion. Anything less is a distortion of love. You are not weak for setting boundaries. You are not ungrateful for demanding respect. You are not selfish for refusing to be controlled or criticized into silence. And you are certainly not disloyal for walking away from abuse. These are acts of courage, acts of reclaiming your power and honoring your worth. By refusing to tolerate toxic behaviors, you break the cycle. You teach others how to treat you, and perhaps most importantly, you model to the next generation that love is not meant to be painful, manipulative, or conditional. Let us be clear, this is not about cutting ties recklessly or abandoning relationships at the first sign of imperfection. Every family, every connection will have disagreements, misunderstandings, and flaws, but there is a difference between imperfection and harm. Imperfections can be forgiven. Harm cannot be ignored. To continue tolerating harmful behaviors is to allow them to grow stronger until they define the very fabric of your relationships. And that is not the legacy you deserve to live or leave behind. So I leave you with this challenge. Take a hard look at the relationships in your life. Ask yourself, am I being honored here? Or am I being diminished? Does this connection bring me peace, or does it steal it? Do I feel free to be myself, or am I constantly silenced, shamed, or controlled? The answers to those questions will tell you everything you need to know about what you should no longer tolerate. You owe it to yourself to demand better, not just from strangers, not just from colleagues, but from the very people who claim to love you, because love without respect is not love at all. Love without safety is not love at all, and love that must be begged for or earned is not love at all. You deserve better. And when you finally believe that, you will never again settle for less.